Marvel has recently been focusing a lot on religion. Not always the most popular religious beliefs, and sometimes they barely scratch the surface of their beliefs and their unique point of views. But nonetheless, I've noticed their obsession with it for the past years. A lot of people say this saga of the MCU, the multiverse saga, has no purpose or themes or narrative or overall importance. And while yes, at the surface level, I can definitely see this point of view, but if we look a little bit closer into what Marvel has been releasing in phases 4 and 5, I think we can start to map out the plan for the saga ultimately. Starting with Marvel's most widely known movie that covers religion so broadly in Thor Love and Thunder. Now this is not a review of the movie, just saying the obvious in its purpose. Gorr was a man who put his faith and hope into the gods to save him and his daughter from this hellish desertscape of a planet. But ultimately his daughter Love passes away due to their dire conditions. Gorr, although broken, hungry, and lost, still held a powerful belief in his god, and one day he finds an oasis with fresh water, fruit, and a cool breeze. A miracle in his eyes soon turns dark as he is greeted by his god, and he was confronted with the truth that his god never cared about his disciples and they were celebrating the slaying of the wielder of the Necrosword. He just happened to stumble upon them. After renouncing his god, the Necrosword gives him the power to kill his false prophet and all other gods. Over the course of the movie, he's trying to get to eternity where he can make a wish to kill all gods. Through, I guess, seeing a god show compassion and actual care towards a mortal, he decides to revive his daughter and leave her with Thor, while he succumbs to the sword's curse and dies. Again, not a review of the movie, but this movie shows us the dangers of ultimate faith in one person, god, or figure, how hate of this one person or figure you yourself put so much faith in that you start to poison yourself and others. But in the next movie, it is actually quite the opposite experience these characters have with faith. In Black Panther Wakanda Forever, we follow the nation of Wakanda as they mourn the loss of their king T'Challa. The people taking it the hardest are of course his family members like Shuri and Queen Ramonda. Queen Ramonda finds solace in her son's passing through her traditions in a culture that worships Bast, the Panther god. A tradition of theirs is to burn the ceremonial garments you wore at the funeral of the deceased. It's a tradition that helps you accept the death of your loved ones and end your grieving process. In the film, it's a big point of topic to point out Shuri's less than traditional thinking and her belief in science, technology, and logical means. The whole movie, she is mostly enraged by her brother's death. She knows she could have saved him if given enough time or resources. Something her brother and mother have always tried to teach her through these films is that their traditions will bring her comfort when the logical and scientific thinking brings her discomfort. T'Challa was a great example of how tradition can meet modern science, well, Wakandan modern science, because he is a believer in Bast and the ancestral plane, and was elated to speak with his father as he assumed his spot on the throne of Wakanda. The ancestral plane to me is a placeholder for what in the comics Bast was. Bast deems if you are worthy or not to be the Black Panther of Wakanda when you ingest the heart-shaped herb, and her decision does have a lot to do with your devotion to your belief and following of traditions, which Shuri is famously known for questioning and ultimately being deemed unworthy to become the Black Panther in the comics. But in the movie, through overwhelming loss and great will, Shuri reverse engineers the heart-shaped herb and is not faced with Bast, the Panther goddess, or her brother in the ancestral plane, but rather her cousin. The ancestral plane mirrored her heart and mindset in wanting the world to burn for the vengeance she felt, and she spoke to her ruthless cousin Killmonger, a figure who also wanted vengeance for what Wakanda did to him and practically the world. But at the end of the day, Shuri remembered who she was and became a better Black Panther for all. She burned her garments and let go of her grief as she cried and remembered her family as a new member was introduced. And is that religion? Not quite, but it is faith, so I thought it could go well in this theory. The Marvel shows also add to my growing theory. Like Miss Marvel, there is not much to say about this entry except the fact that this series wears their Muslim religion on their sleeve. From the paintings in the Khan's house to constant prayers in the household to multiple scenes in and outside the mosque, it's a show that is unapologetically made by and for Muslim people. But let's pivot to a show like Loki, a show that focuses on a god confronted with his literal humanity. Stripped away of his powers and told his fate, he solely chooses to save the multiverse from dying and becoming the god of the multiverse, or the god of stories, or the god of whatever, you get it. Also in the show, it presents Kang, or He Who Remains, as a holy figure at points, more so in season 2, where he erects statues and paintings of himself and shows off how he beat all the variants in the war. The last show to dive a little into religion for Marvel is Moon Knight. Although they barely show Mark Spector and his Jewish religion, in a flashback sequence we see his brother's death and his mom's subsequent abuse and later later on Shiva. Mark takes off his kippah in a rather emotional scene where we can only theorize that his religion has failed him. In easing the amount of emotion that he is having at this very point, he breaks into a new personality. In the same episode, we also get to see the afterlife and how all religious afterlives exist in the Marvel universe. You know, just going through these shows and movies again, they all have great themes and plots, but it just seems Marvel is afraid to go deeper into the roots. Because seeing Mark actually deal with the implications of his religion and his family and all his personalities would have been dark, but ultimately a great story, or at least a good story beat. But I can say the same thing about a lot of Marvel projects like the Marvels, Thor Love and Thunder, and maybe Secret Invasion. Just a lot of restraint overall from Marvel these past couple of years. But anyway, back to the topic. In these past years in Marvel movies, we have seen people who inspired the gods of men, self-appointed gods that made life that rebelled toward him, powerful former heroes self-implode as they destroy worlds around them because they weren't able to deal with their grief, how grief irradiates and grows in different ways in the same family, how there are consequences for the power that you use, and realizing that you have a responsibility to utilize your power more wisely and not become a power-hungry goblin or a person seeking godhood or a horrendous monster or a criminal or a mad scientist or a guy on vacation in Cabo. Why was he here? Like, for real. Marvel has done all of this groundwork building up these themes of faith, religion, and belief through loss, anger, and grief. It may seem disconnected, but I personally have a theory leading up to Kang Dynasty why all this matters. Kang being the big bad of the saga means we are in for a giant war that involves multiple realities. He is a ruthless conqueror, and I ultimately think Kang will win this multiversal war in Kang Dynasty. And I mean he wins everything. One of his variants reshapes the multiverse in their image, and our main reality is put into servitude for its ultimate vision. The only thing our beloved characters can fall back on in these times for the next movie is their faith, their belief, and their determination to make it through this unbelievable situation. Now, I don't know how they win out ultimately or how they defeat Kang, but we know the sequel is Secret Wars, so we could be seeing a whole different multiversal team of Avengers, X-Men, and Fantastic Four to help take out the big ultimate task to defeat Kang the Conqueror. Hold on, guys. I'm getting a phone call. Hello? Huh? That's variety, bro. It's not even news. It's a magazine. Wait, what? Fired? Wait, he's just a writer, and he made a pretty bad movie. I mean, who watched Ant-Man? They could still do a great Kang Dynasty movie without him. Wait, the director? I think they'll just find a new, better director. He's not even big of a deal, you know? He's just a director. They can just scrap the whole big bad. I mean, what would they even do? They've been building up to this for years. Oh. Huh, really? Okay. Okay. I gotta go. Alright. So I just got off the phone with an associate. It turns out Marvel might be moving away from the Kang angle, making this whole video kind of pointless. But I actually think this could be a good thing, because Doctor Doom does fit this theme a little bit better. Ultimately, Doctor Doom could want the same thing as Kang, just not on the universal level. He wants to conquer Earth for everything that has happened with the Avengers. I mean, they destroyed a country that could be retconned to be Latveria in earlier times, and Doom rebuilds it and names it in the original country's name. Kang Dynasty could be a whole Doom movie like Infinity War was a Thanos movie. This would lead to Secret Wars, and it can be a more natural set of events that leads us to that point instead of Kang. Seeing Secret Wars is a Doctor Doom and Fantastic Four story, mostly it makes sense for Doom to be there. And the story is famous for introducing us to God, Emperor Doom. It's just fitting that every religious and faith element that the MCU has covered thus far leads us up to their penultimate birth of a new self-appointed, self-made God. It makes for a great endpoint for these characters and what we followed for the past few phases, and could introduce us to a new rebirth of the cinematic universe like the rumors would want you to believe. We can keep the theories flowing because Marvel is quite literally in flux right now, and changing big bads midstream is extremely risky, and kind of dumb because Jonathan Majors has not had a bad performance as Kang. He just happened to be part of one of Marvel's worst movies, but what do you expect when the hero has to win and he's going against Ant-Man? Now I get it if Jonathan turns out to be guilty in his case, but you still had the easiest way to explain the recast. But maybe Doom is the way to go because it would be hard to find someone to match Majors' performance. Either way, Marvel has emphasized religion and faith for years now, and it has to be for a reason. So what do you ultimately think it will be for? And do you think Marvel should keep Kang or pivot to Doom? Tell me in the comments below and leave a like, follow me on Twitter, and peace.